Hello, and welcome to my writing corner, although you can't see very much of it. I'm Shirley Halestock, and among other books, I also write in the Blythe Cove Manor series with USA Today bestseller Kelly McClymer and New York Times bestseller Lorraine Bartlett. Today, I'm going to read the opening scene from my tale in the Blythe Cove Magic Anthology. This fantasy is called The Obsidian Cat. It's the story of a sailor returning to the B&B. He'd visit there several years, and the magic that comes along with him this time adds all unexpected ways. So now, the Obsidian Cat. Home is a sailor, home from the sea. Ethan Pollock shouted the standard greeting as he came through the double doors of Blythe Cove Manor. A smile as large as the Atlantic Ocean covered his windburned face. It always felt like home when he was on the vineyard. "Where is everyone?" he shouted. Blythe Calvert appeared in the kitchen doorway. The owner of Blythe Cove Manor, a staple B&B on Martha's Vineyard, smiled at him. "Ethan," she shouted, her voice high and happy. He was the surprise. He saw the surprise on her face. "There you are, my one and only love." He said that, heading for her with his arms outstretched. Ethan greeted her the same way each time he returned to the manor. Grasping her in a bear hug, he whirled her around the room. "Put me down," Blythe protested, her tone covering a light-hearted laugh. Ethan steadied her on her feet and stepped back, but holding her hands out at arm length. "Tell me, you've got some raisin muffins in that kitchen." "Don't I always?" Blythe asked. "Sit down and I'll bring you some. I'll also bring the scones, which I know you came to eat." Blythe brought 2 cups of coffee, a plate of scones, and a plate of muffins into the dining room. Ethan wasn't sure if he was the reason she always had scones as part of breakfast, but she'd introduced him to them, and nobody made them better. Sitting next to him, she asked, "What are you doing here?" Ethan bit into a hot buttered scone and closed his eyes as if the food was pure ecstasy on his tongue. "I'm here for the ceremony. At the last minute, the Navy assigned me here." "At your request, I'll bet." "Yeah, at my request," he nodded. "So, is my room free?" "Isn't it always?" Her brows rose in mock sarcasm. "Great, I'll get my gear." Finishing the scone, Ethan went outside and returned with his duffel bag. He entered the captain's quarters, an ocean view room with walls the color of the sea. He stayed in this room for 4 visits, since he first came here 10 years ago and found Blythe, the woman who was like a second mother to him. The room was the same, familiar as the deck of a ship, looking out on the sea and waiting for him like an abandoned lover. The walls had been painted and the bedding was different, but everything else was in place. However, he felt something was different. Something had changed. He couldn't define it, couldn't see anything out of the ordinary, but there was a different feel about this room. Shrugging it off, Ethan unpacked quickly, taking a box from the bag and setting it on the dresser. Opening it, he checked that his gift was safe and unbroken. His other things he put in the drawers and dropped his shaving kit in the adjoining bathroom. Then he quickly changed from his uniform into jeans and a black sweater. Neither item sported a logo or a signature. Wearing a uniform all the time had cured him of labels. Wearing jeans and a sweater, he was just one of the crowd, and today he wanted that anonymity. He needed to get outside. He'd been confined on the USS Torrance for the last 4 months. It was time to see the land and get that eerie feeling about the room out of his head. Besides, he needed to check the ceremony space for the Memorial Day exercises. There was no rehearsal. They'd done that on the ship, and after so many times he could go through the routine blindfolded. He also wanted to find out if any of his buddies had arrived and checked out what they were planning to do this weekend. As he headed for the door, something in the dresser mirror caught his eye. Stopping, he stared at the space. his breath suddenly coming in rapid pants and his chest threatening to explode. A woman stood in front of a chair near the bed. Jerking around, he looked at the space in the room, expecting her to attack him. No one was there. The space was empty. Returning to the mirror, she faced him, unsmiling, unmoving. Again, he looked behind him. All he saw was empty air. She only existed in the mirror. The thought seemed like a whisper in his head, and it couldn't be true. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a croak. She didn't respond. Ethan didn't think she could see or hear him, although her huge brown eyes stared directly into his. Turning around, he again looked at the space where the mirror showed a person. There was no one there, and no one in the mirror when he looked back. Ethan blinked and shook his head as if dislodging something. Had he really seen someone? Was it a trick of the light, or had he been too long at sea? For 10 years he'd walked the deck of one ship or another. Never had he hallucinated. He dreamed occasionally, but not about someone he didn't know and hadn't ever seen. Moving to the chair, he felt nothing as he stepped in the space where the mirror reflected the woman's image. Taking a deep breath, Ethan exhaled, shrugging off the incident as his mind playing tricks. He needed fresh air, land air, and plenty of sunshine. And he needed to walk on ground that didn't sway under his feet. Lifting the box he'd set on the dresser, the memory of how he'd gotten the gift came back to him. Another strange occurrence, he remembered. One couldn't be connected to the other. They were oceans apart. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. The full story is available on any of the electronic retailers. Look for comments in the section below for the link that will take you to the Blythe Cove Magic book. And you can get the full story along with the other two stories that are written by Kelly McClymer, our USA Today bestseller, and New York Times bestseller, Lorraine Bartlett. Thank you very much. And as always, keep reading.